Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depending on when and where you are. Welcome to another Industry Tech Days live session. This is actually the first one of day 2, following our keynote this morning with Anant Agarwal. It's an excellent session, highly recommend it. Today we're starting off really strong with C&K, and we're going to kick off with a really interesting topic I think everyone's going to get a lot out of, which is data collection demands from 5G, IoT, and IoMT connected medical devices, where IoMT means the Internet of Medical Things. So there's a lot to dive into today, so we're going to get right to it. But a couple of housekeeping items before we introduce our speakers. One is that you have a Q&A widget at the bottom of your screen. You'll be able to submit questions all the way through the session. So keep that in mind. If something pops up in your login, just pop it on in, and our team will make sure it pops up at the end of the screen at the end of the session. After this session wraps, you will be able to access it on demand. It takes about an hour. And let me also direct you to the C&K booth. There is a live chat function on their booth and a lot of really cool content. So just to remind you to check that out as well. And stay tuned at the end for our giveaway for this session as well. So with all of that out of the way, please want to introduce our speakers for today. So we have Roger Bohannan, who is our global segment leader of the market development for medical devices for C&K, who's joining us from Austin, Texas, and over 20 years of expertise coming in engineered solutions, components and motion modules, supporting medical market development. Really cool background from Roger Bohannan. And we also have Krol here joining us from the UK, actually. 14 years of experience in his background. His current role is the global sales leader for the medical segment for C&K. So much really cool experience sitting here on this session. So let me just welcome you guys. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Kate. It's a real pleasure. Appreciate it. And welcome to all our visitors, too.
Well, we clearly have quite a bit that we need to get into today. So let's get started. So first question, a lot of solutions out there when it comes to electromechanical switches. C&K, obviously very strong in this space, but not everyone might be familiar with them. So can you give us a quick overview of C&K in general, what solutions you guys offer?
C&K is a leading global provider of electromechanical micro-miniature switching solutions. That includes our catalog model, the variants, and the custom solutions that we provide to our strategic partners. We have over 24,000 customers worldwide. We have over 50,000 SKUs in our part catalog today, over 92 years of experience in the space. We cover 3 regions globally, and we have 8 locations that we support those 3 regions. So that's C&K today.
Wow. That's a pretty broad bite of the entire.
We are a global organization, and we have a vast footprint to support the demands of a global network of customers.
Yeah, no kidding. And obviously you have a lot, help us out with this slide, over 50,000 unique products. What does that include exactly?
That's our mainstay in our many families of switches that we provide. Excuse me. Our tack switches are primarily. We have key switches, push buttons, and primarily for the data collection and the sensing in medical devices today, we have an expanding detect family of products. With this family, this is on our website. We have a very thorough and deep website that has all the specifications and capabilities of these products and these families that you can go to and visit and understand exactly what they're able to do. Beyond that, the variants and the custom solutions aren't actually on our website, and that's where we're going to speak more deeply about today.
Okay. Well, obviously, with a lot of the focus that you just reminded us of, we're going to talk about these specifically medical applications. So, can you tell me a little bit about how C&K specifically supports the medical market?
Yeah, we have our crown jewel manufacturing facility in Dole, France. It's a vertically integrated, highly automated, quality-driven facility. It does everything that you need to have a complete and totally designed product come in the front door, completely packaged out. It does plating, forming, shaping, molding. It does all the tooling internally. We have all the engineering team required to innovate, engineer, and produce a finished switching solution for the industry. Raw material coming out, a complete solution coming, raw material going in, and a complete solution coming out the back end. So that is one of 3 facilities. We have the facility in Dole, France, which has all the credentials for any industry, any segment, auto, industrial, space, high-end consumer, or medical. And then we also have our Chinese facility in Huizhou, China, and a Vietnam facility to support manufacturing also.
Another quite large bite of everything. It's really interesting to, when you said global, you really meant it, huh? Can you tell me a little bit about how you came to this focus in the medical segment? What does that really look like for you?
Well, we've our mission statement has been driven to support 2 macro trends in the medical segment. The first trend is the value-based care model. That's the transition from the treatment model going into prevention and early intervention. The second macro trend that we're looking at is the point of care model. And that's where the patient could be anywhere. It's a physical location of that patient. In the past, you used to always assume that it was in the hospital or the doctor's office. And today, and looking forward, that patient could be absolutely anywhere. On a boat, in a park, at home, could also be in a doc's office or a hospital. But all that information that they used to get from that point of care still needs to be delivered with accuracy and needs to be delivered in a timely manner, even if that patient isn't there. So what we've done in our mission statement is we identify with market leaders, the ones that are really demanding this transformation in the industry. And that's where we spend time developing strategic partnerships. We want to share our education in the IoT market and the connected technical and our expertise in that area, our connected technology expertise, and then also contribute to the remedies that they're coming up with. Our solutions are improving their products. So we want to make sure that our contributions are shared together. And then with the best-in-class engineering, production support, and the services to our partners, we want to make sure we continue to help the acceleration from the passive devices to active devices and unconnected to connected. That transformation is happening as the point of care, the physical location of that patient, is moving away from the doc's office and away from hospitals. So that's where our mission statement is focused.
Yeah, and obviously a lot of that is extremely relevant right now. So what I'm hearing is that you guys already kind of had a beat on the fact that telemedicine was going to be extremely important moving forward, and then obviously 2020 just proved you right pretty severely, right?
Kate, it's interesting. We spent the last 3 years really diving deep into this market. C&K has a real clear understanding of who the people are, what they're trying to do, who the customers are and what they're trying to do, and what the needs are of the market. So that's really relevant right now because of the acceleration that's occurring here today.
Absolutely. It's never been more crucial, at least in as far as I'm aware, for there to be more options for people to access that healthcare. So clearly you guys had sort of a jump on it, which is incredible. How about moving forward? How does your mission get changed by all of this going on? What's next?
Well, we've always seen the medical device market in three subsegments: the monitoring and diagnostic equipment, and that's a subsegment of the market that's standard bearing. It has a lot of electronics, a lot of circuitry. They're continuing to jam a lot of functionality into a footprint, but that footprint isn't changing or miniaturizing now. And those particular devices see tens of thousands of patients. With the value-based care and the point-of-care models that are developing, e-health and personal monitoring is moving away and being more mobile. And then there is the emerging personal and one-time use disposables, the formerly passive devices now becoming active, or the unconnected devices that are now incorporating some connectivity. Those two areas are ones that have, they see one patient, or there are multiple uses for one patient, which is driving very high volumes in the second and third categories that we see here today.
Right, and a lot of changes occurring there as well, from the medical care professionals' perspective, from the patient's perspective, and also notably here at All About Circuits for the designer's perspective as well, right? I think we have some conversation about that around the bend, but obviously we can't get away from the changes that presents for the circuit designers, right?
Right.
Lots of. Let me ask you a little bit about that particular aspect as well. The emerging customer base with these emerging markets. What are you guys seeing right now?
Yeah, hi Kate, morning, and hello everyone. I can answer that one. I think as Roger's already introduced, the main application for us being that journey from unconnected to connected, or passive to active device. And I think for us that's absolutely critical in driving our customer base forward. And what that has seen is a new emerging customer base and strategic partners for C&K. So as everyone can see on the slide, pharmaceutical companies historically wouldn't have been a huge focus for C&K, and vice versa, because they wouldn't be making typically mechanical only products. So there wouldn't necessarily be electronics or switching functions needed. That particular trend of connectivity, IoMT in these devices, that is driving pharmaceutical companies to invest in design teams and investing in devices and products to follow that trend. So for C&K, it is a new customer base. I think alongside the pharmaceutical companies, we have also the device OEMs, so drug delivery and the device OEMs that support those pharmaceutical companies, and also design companies as well, which some of us have worked with, and some of those are existing customers, which of course helps. But for sure, I think the focus at the front end, so the sales, business development side within this market, has been to try and partner with those market leaders, with those pharmaceutical companies, and support at an engineering level to drive this connectivity trend.
Yeah, that's a great kind of segue there. For those applications that you've been talking about so far, there's a whole lot we can get into with those, but let me just ask you, what are the other applications that C&K is targeting at the moment?
Yeah, sure. So I think, again, focusing within that single-use, disposable, connected device area, we see several drug delivery systems. So I think we refer internally for sure as drug delivery or pharmaceutical delivery systems, which is where C&K is focusing, I would say, as the most common projects that we're supporting. And within that, you've got four main product types, so auto-injectors, inhalers, nebulizers, and vaporizers. And that's exactly where we're seeing projects today. And I think the long-term investment in moving into connected devices for C&K are in those areas for sure.
Okay. And just, for my own familiarity, when you talk about auto-injection, is that pumps for diabetics, that sort of thing?
Yeah, absolutely. So it covers various products, I would say, but it's very much the diabetes market, other type of drug medication as well. But yeah, for sure, it could be auto injectors, could be single-use disposable pens, could be glucose meters, that type of product. So there's lots of products within it, but certainly that type of application is where we're focusing.
Sure. And so how are you guys actually approaching this particular market, C&K?
Yeah, so it's been fascinating for us, actually. Roger mentioned in the last, I would say, 2.5, 3 years, this particular market, whilst we've had medical customers and important medical customers up until this point, the connectivity trend, the drug delivery system trend has seen us focus and develop an approach which I think has really added value. So the slide that's up at the moment captures a lot of the different types of functions that we've been asked to resolve or to solve using a switching component. And for us, that's brought lots of unique challenges, sort of data collection recipe within connected devices. And I would say that for us, it's that engineer to engineer approach, which has been critical. So that anything to do with tracking, measuring, detecting, or collecting that data can be solved within a switch, within a detect switch, within a sensor of some description. And our approach has really been, as I said, very much focusing on that engineer to engineer engagement, understanding the design challenges very early on in a project. And a good example of that actually is where we've had a number of projects which power preservation is critical for that particular device.
Mm-hmm. Obviously, if I may, that you can't get more reliability heavy than medical in a lot of ways, right? So how do you help engineers with that particular in mind when you're talking about that engineer to engineer design, early intervention design sort of conversation? What does that really look like for you guys?
So, Kate, I just want to jump back a little bit to the power preservation. I find that to be one of the really unique opportunities that communication has between our engineering and development team and the customer's engineering and development team. When you're taking an unconnected device and converting it or transforming it to a connected device that's currently on the market, and let's just take say a pen, an auto pen that works with psoriasis. It has a timed regimen. Right now it's a passive device. There's nothing included in it whatsoever. But now what they want to do is take that product today in the same footprint, the same familiar look that the customer has seen for many years, and they want to jam in some functionality to it. They want to jam in power, they want connectivity, some data collection. They want to know that the therapy has been delivered appropriately, and they want to know all that. But they also want to make sure that there's power preserved for when the customer uses it. But power goes in during the assembly process, is there during the supply chain management process, is still present in the device while it's sitting on the pharmacist's shelf. So there's been some innovation that we've come up with to support the non-consumption of power during all those processes to make sure that the power is there when the patient uses the product. So it's some very innovative thinking that has to come from the customer early on, and some innovative solutions coming from C&K during that process, during that time. So power preservation is a very interesting topic, but that's just one of many different things that we've been helping engineering teams develop and innovate for a solution that could make their product multiple times better than what they originally thought.
Yeah, so you guys are aiming to be involved in that design process as early as you can, right? And so you hear a lot of these challenges come through from the engineering side. What other challenges are you hearing engineers come across, and how does that help C&K move forward and innovate moving forward?
Yeah, thanks, Kate. I think that's a really key question and a key area where we focused on. So I think Roger's explained a little bit about power preservation. I would call that a very specific design challenge. How do we preserve power? How do we achieve what that customer needs? And it all goes back to being engaged very, very early on at the design stage, right? So I mentioned earlier about that engineer to engineer engagement. What we see from this market, and quite different to a number of other markets we engage in, is that they have very specific design challenges. So that could be fitting a switch or electronics within an existing footprint. So a lot of the applications we serve, there's an existing product in the market today, and they're looking to add connectivity to that product. So that includes keeping the size of the overall product the same, potentially not altering the customer's brand or the user interface or user experience too much. And that presents different challenges from a switching perspective. So that could be the size of the component that we offer. That could be different travel requirements, so very specific over travel needs from a switch. It could also result in tighter tolerances on the switch itself. And I think the main difference with this market that we see in being engaged so early on in the design is an advantage, I would say, to the project, is that in other markets applications, the industry standard for a switch is often enough, okay? We see within the drug delivery space and the connected device space that maybe a standard product will achieve 80% of what the design requires or what the customer needs. So getting in at the design stage enables C&K to support and achieve 100% from the component. So whether that be adding to the travel, that could be lengthening the actuator or tightening tolerances, we can achieve that only very early on in the design stage, I would say. So
that's really
critical to us.
Yeah. And obviously all of that put together, right, from the beginning to the end, the engineers that engage with you and your products and the challenges that they bring to your doorstep, the advice that you give them, hopefully earlier on in the process, it all kind of adds up to helping define that next generation of products, right? So can you tell me a little bit about what that really looks like when we say next gen?
Yeah, sure. So in terms of, Roger, are you going to handle that one?
Yeah, I want to talk a little bit about that. It's that discussion that we've been having. You know, what are the design engineers looking for? What are their challenges that they're running into? What kind of products are in the catalog today, out in the market, the standard products? So that's where innovation from our teams come in. And our innovation teams, they do span Dole, Weizhou, and in the US, but it could come up to a very simple product where maybe it's an inhaler and they want to make sure that they recognize when the cap is open. And there's very little room or energy or space that could be utilized to incorporate any of these data collection points. So the animation in this particular slide that you see yellow, green, and red pieces of metal. It was the first version of how do we recognize or identify that the cap has been put in the position to deliver a dose. So that obviously, well, not obviously, but that matured and evolved into a real solution that ultimately was a module that could count how many times the product was used and would know exactly when that product was consumed completely. So there's a lot of evolution from the beginning, working with the design engineers and the specifications of the product, and truly the type of data that needs to be collected from their device. So they have a complete data recipe that they're looking to grab, but they also have to incorporate all these things into the design, which is where the collaboration between our two engineering teams really kind of takes hold. Anything to add to that, Adam?
Yeah, so I think in terms of new product development, Roger mentioned at the beginning of the session that we've got a website which has all of our standard available products with 3D models and data sheets and what have you, and it's a fantastic tool for our customers. But of course, there's lots of innovations happening which don't feature there. And I think the medical market and this particular application is the perfect example of that. And we've had, or we do have ongoing products in development where actually we're talking to customers about it at their design stage and then adding features to our new products to suit them, but also to suit the wider market need. And so from an innovation perspective, it's always changing and updating. And that's why, again, going back to that engineer to engineer engagement and being involved very early on, it enables us also to innovate and maybe change the path of a switch to suit a customer.
Mm-hmm. And just find it really interesting, by the by. Do you think that a lot of the time people sort of focus on, in the design process, it just always strikes me that sometimes you'll talk to someone and they're like, you really got to get thermal in there sooner. You really got to EMI in there sooner. So you guys also are sort of proponents of making sure that that electromechanical element is present much sooner in the process, right?
Yeah, I think so. Sorry, Roger, you go ahead.
No, please, Adam, go ahead.
I think what we see is exactly that in this particular application, the switch or the electromechanical component part is actually often critical to the device. So actually, it might be being addressed earlier on in the design stage. And exactly as you said, Kate, if we're at that stage discussing how we can either include a standard component or add some features to the electromechanical design, it does have a knock-on effect to the rest of the device and the rest of the project. And we've seen that a growing number of times, I would say, in this market, and it's certainly what we're trying to do moving forward.
Yeah, there's one thing I want to add there too, Adam. The fact you mentioned earlier, there's sensors, there's capacitive touch, there's other flow meters and other things that could be incorporated into a design which is part of that data collection recipe that customers are looking for. And those are all power consumers. And any IC will consume power. And if we can provide electromechanical a solution that will do the exact same function, that's going to help that product last longer and add additional functionality in the space that they have available.
Mm-hmm. So it really goes back to that concept of you guys, if you're involved earlier in the design process, if you really get that engineer to engineer collaboration, then you can actually help them make the most of their design. You can really help them see what other opportunities are available to them. Just trying to summarize a little bit. Is that about right?
There's no question. The fact is, our teams have a lot of experience. We've encountered a lot of challenges. The teams that are working on these newer devices, by leveraging our experience, can help them get down the path to market more quickly.
Mm-hmm. Obviously, a huge pain point for a lot of people in the audience. I think we have some questions that we wanted to get to, but I wanted to open it up to both of you before we do that. Are there any closing remarks, anything that you wanted to really emphasize that maybe you want the audience to walk away with?
Yeah, I think from my side, it's as I said, a different approach for C&K, I would say, because of the demands of the market. And for us, we are fully committed to the market, immersing ourselves not only in the switching element, but also what goes on around it. So we like to think, as I said, that engaging early on, using our engineering teams and our engineering resources there for exactly that reason, for our customers, for our partners to talk to us at an early stage. Could be very, very early, right? There might not be a product yet. There might not be a device yet. It may be a concept, just an idea. Can we make this work with a switch, with some sort of electromechanical component? And please do use us for that, because again, at an engineering level, that's where we want to share some ideas, brainstorm with our customers, with our partners, and then help the device from there.
Andrew?
Nope, I'm good.
Awesome.
That summarized it perfectly.
All right. Well, before we get into some of the questions here, let me do a quick reminder that if you have anything else that you would like to ask the team, you can pop it into your Q&A widget now. You can also go to the C&K booth and use their live chat function as well. Quick order of business, the winner of the session this morning, congratulations to Russell Simpson. So Russell will be reaching out to you and make sure that you get your prize package. So let me get out of the way and start answering or getting you some questions to answer here. So first off, what will be the typical timeline that C&K will offer to a customer who is looking for a fully custom solution on a medical program?
That's a good question. There are different models that are associated, and obviously customers, particularly in the medical segment, go through different clinical trials. Clinical trial, pre-clinical trial, clinical trials, and clinical trial 1 and 2. So in the front end of the design, if they're looking for a specialized product, a custom product, we typically can get things to them in about 8 weeks. That's the first design. We utilize all the technologies available today: 3D printing, quick turn capabilities with our molding capabilities. All our molding and forming and shaping of tools are done in-house, so we can utilize an expeditious, prioritized manner to get these things done. So it depends on the customer demand and the product, and so there are things we can do, but I'm going to say standard 8 weeks.
Out of curiosity, how does that differ from other applications that you guys typically work with? What are the specifics of the medical side that engineers should be aware of that could change their timelines?
Well, that is a standard for the for all the segments that we work with, and that's automotive, industrial, space, high-end consumer, and medical. There obviously is some customers have more pressing needs than others, so it's a matter of the discussion and conversation around that. But just to standardize it, I would say 8 weeks, and it would be medical or any other of the segments that we support.
Awesome. All right. What customization options are available and most common for portable medical electronics? It's a good question.
That's a good question. I'll take that one, Roger, if you like. So I think it's a great question because it lends itself back to the design challenges in the market that we see, right? So it could be, in terms of levels of customization, it could be taking an existing product, and typically in this market it may be a longer actuator for extending the travel of the product, or potentially tightening tolerances within the switch to give a more reliable and high precision switching. They're often the types of drivers we see. If that can be achieved in a standard product, that's exactly where we'll look first with those factors. If we need to then go down the fully custom route, taking those in mind, we will. But for sure, I would say unique footprints, travel, and tolerances are driving our customers' demands today in medical.
Nice. Yeah, some really interesting conversations I'm sure you guys get to have around the office about some of those custom requests that you get in to be a fly on that wall.
Hey, not just that, but the interesting new products we get to see that are coming out. That's the really interesting thing to me.
Yeah, to be that close to innovation that early in the design process, that must be pretty neat. Little jealous of that part of your guys' jobs, to be honest. Okay, so we have another question here. Are there NRE charges for custom solutions? So
there are, and it all depends on the level of engineering that's required. There's obviously a tooling, if there's a tool required, there's development charges, and it is a collaboration too. It's it's unique to each individual application. And is it a completely custom product that will be wholly used by the customer, or is it something that could be broadly used to the market? And that will drive the NRE and the charges associated with the device.
Okay. That's good to know. Are there common or specific design attributes that you are driving into your next generation products?
Okay. So again, I think that's another good question, because it's similar to again, what does the market need, right? Our approach within the medical market and within IoMT devices has been driven from the customer. And that again comes back to what we include in our innovations coming forward or moving forward. So again, I would say tightening tolerances and specific travel are two features which come up almost every type of design that we have in this market. And because of that, again, because of the voice of the customer is feeding that back, that's what we're looking to do. And I think it starts to move us away from just offering what I would say switch industry standard products to higher precision switches that's driven by the medical market. So yeah, certainly travel and tolerances, just producing something more high precision for the market.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And yeah, we didn't even necessarily spend too much time talking about that, but I'm sure precision is a really common word that you hear around your offices as well, especially in the medical field. Obviously, not much room for error for a lot of those situations.
Well, that adds one point that I'd like to speak to. We're talking about precision. Again, these are a lot of the devices that we're talking about today are passive to active, unconnected to connected. So we're taking devices that have a fixed footprint and we're jamming things in there. We're helping teams jam things in there. Those teams are looking for our support to help with the architecture miniaturization that's occurring within that device. So that's where the real innovation and the real interesting conversations develop.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just would reiterate that a couple times and just to put it in very plain language, it's more stuff and less space, right? That's the trend across the board. Yeah, no problem, right?
No problem.
Quick question for you. Are C&K switches manufactured in ISO 13485 and or FDA registered facilities?
Great question.
Yeah, very good question. We are in the process of getting our 1345 certification. We've gone through the pre-audits and we're going through that process now. But just so you know, that is a conversation we have with all our strategic partners. The demand of FDA-approved facilities or 1345 certifications. We have certifications that cover military, aerospace, automotive. All of these allow us basically to be compliant under 13485 today with a few added features that we need to provide. But every one of our customers today, it has not been an issue that our products are not 1345 credentialed today. And we have not required to have an FDA approved facility. We are not a device manufacturer. We're a component supplier to the medical segment.
It's an interesting distinction as well. Yeah, it brings up a lot of questions about the accreditation process. There's a lot of, specifically in the medical community, right, and for medical applications, there's a lot of sort of pitfalls there that engineers do need to be aware of, especially, talking about this from unconnected to connected. I mean,
right. It's an interesting question. Actually, there are a couple of standards out there that drive our technical and even the specifications associated. It's the 60601 and the 60529, and I'm sure the engineers that are listening to this conversation understand what those demands are coming from portable device manufacturers. And there's drop tests and IP standards, and all those specifications are being driven into the products that we're delivering to the device manufacturers today. Those are things we consider and talk about each and every day and make sure that they drive the specifications for our products coming out tomorrow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. You guys need to be just as agile as the device manufacturers. Yeah. Okay, let's see. Oh, I really like when we get questions like these. It gives us a chance to dig into you guys as individuals. So in your experience, were there design challenges that you found later rather than earlier? And what guidance would you give to the audience to avoid program delays?
Oh, that's a great question.
Go ahead, Adam.
Sorry, Roger. This is one of those where do we start type questions, I think.
Yeah.
I'd say we talked a little bit about power preservation earlier. And, you know, a lot of the aspects which we spoke about maybe are found earlier on in the design are critical to the operation of the device or what that switch is doing. For example, travel. You know, it needs a certain travel to work with the mechanical part of the device and then to dispense the drug, as an example. Okay. Challenges later on, well, there's always some that occur. I would say topics such as power preservation, as even things like signal intervention, signal speed, bounce issues, all this type of, I would say, next level testing that happens when a device is designed. And that comes much later on. But actually, if we could, and it's a great question for that reason, if we could address it earlier, it won't only help, I guess, the switch development and add those features at an earlier stage, but will help the project move as quickly as possible. Roger, is that fair?
Yeah, no, I think you nailed it. The bottom line is the signal integrity that's coming from our components under adverse conditions are important to understand from the beginning. And oftentimes, frankly, during the process, for even the device OEM, the device manufacturer, the designer, those are the things that in their process may come later. But if we can help raise those questions earlier on in the design, that will help them avoid some of the bumps and bruises that they may incur as that device comes closer to a final design.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so as you guys mentioned before, getting to market quickly can be quite a serious pressure on these engineers, and basically are arguing that if you work smarter, not harder sort of situation. If you lay the groundwork and work with companies like C&K earlier, then you will prevent some of those issues that can get you hung up in the testing process.
Yeah, exactly.
Let me get to this other question. I think it's a good one as well. Do you see a future in machine interface where no wires will be needed to connect to the actual switch, and connectivity will be accomplished via cellular or other newer technologies? Very interested in your answer to this one.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, there's a lot of technology out there. In fact, I was collaborating, talking with a next generation device, and it's a part of actually a military application where they're sensing explosives. And the only way they do that is by chemical interaction. And there's a switch that is required for that chemical interaction to identify that there is an explosive present. So yes, there's a lot of things. There's a lot of technology out there. Is there some next generation product out there that we're looking at? And I can tell you we've got a team at C&K that looks for mergers and acquisitions, and that actually is part of the conversation. We're always looking for what is that next generation disruptive technology that is out there that we can incorporate into our product portfolio. All disruptive technologies will happen. It's going to happen no matter what industry you're in. But it's the matter of keeping your eyes open and your ears to the ground. One of the more interesting things about the medical segment, and I talk about disruption in industries all the time, who are going to be the design manufacturers of the products in the next generation? And you hear a lot about Amazon, Apple, Google, coming up with medical devices. And so, if you look 10 years ago, were they on the planet? And, were they doing anything associated close to medical devices? But are they deeply involved in the development of next generation devices today? Yes, they are. So that's where we're looking. We're looking at the newer customers out there, obviously pharmaceutical companies, but we're also looking at the Googles, Amazon, Lab 126, and the disruptive technologies for switching solutions. That was a really good question. I want to know where that came from.
We'll get you the information afterwards. You can hunt them down. Adam, did you want to add on to that one at all?
I think the only thing I would say, not to counter the disruptive technologies for sure, but within medical itself, it's all coming back to reliability, right? So again, I think those technologies, Roger's certainly deeply entrenched with in terms of his role, looking at those next generation technologies for C&K. For us, it's about what's going to perform best in that medical application. At the moment, I think that's why electromechanical is still one of the technologies that suits best, because you can still achieve that reliability. I think from a customer perspective, that will be what drives the technologies of tomorrow for switching. Will it happen? I'm sure it will. When just depends on how reliable we can get it. I think it's a really interesting time for medical technology for sure.
And there is one other thing that's critically important to this conversation is FDA approvals. FDA approvals are critical and world-class. They will test everything associated with it and ensure that everything is credible and works at every level. So, that's what may slow the transition into disruptive technologies, but it won't stop it.
Mm-hmm. And just let me mention, just because it's fresh in my mind from a live session from yesterday, I think that last question is a really timely one in particular, just because the more that you have that wireless sort of interface, machine interface, the less likely you are to necessarily spread some of those maybe diseases that are kind of forefront of our minds at the moment, right? But just some really interesting points in there. So thank you guys for that in-depth question, or in-depth answer to that question. I do think that we are about where we can wrap up today. So let me just thank everyone for attending today. Congratulations again to Russell. And boy, thank you guys so much, Roger and Adam, for really interesting conversation. I really appreciate your time today.
Yeah. Hey, thank you, Kate. And I really appreciate all the people who have taken the time to sit and listen to the conversation. And any questions, our information, contact information is out there. We'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Kate. Thanks, everyone. Look forward to hearing from you.
Yep. And don't forget to go check out the C&K booth, and you can hunt down these two and the whole C&K team. Live chat, check out all the really cool content, and we'll see you out there. Have a really good second day to Industry Tech Days 2020. Thank you, everybody.
Great. Thanks, Kate. Bye.
Thanks, guys.
Take care, everyone. Bye.